Guessing that I'm recording. So a few words about me. I'm at the moment the product engineer at Framer. It's a software startup for designers and design and prototyping collaboration. We're based in Amsterdam. We have awesome team. So we're also hiring. If you wanna know about this, you can talk to me later. This is the company I worked for. I had like 7 years in general, and in all of these companies we had a bit different process of code reviews. And my talk would be kind of a share of my experience, my observation, and research on this topic. So the first question is why code review is important. And I believe this is for two main points. The first one is knowledge sharing. So you can share knowledge about the product, about the technologies, about the knowledge of your coworkers, how they use frameworks, other languages, technologies, and also you can share some business knowledge. And also, of course, it's for preventing issues. If you know some issues beforehand, you can prevent some scalability issues like maintainability, performance, some bugs, and some other stuff. But also, it's very important to have a good culture with the code review. So this is my first kind of open PR and my feelings about this. So we're gonna talk a bit how to make it less hostile. And I have a small question. How many of you feel defensive while doing a code review or opening code reviews? No? Only one? Defensive. Defensive.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. At least some. Okay, so there's kind of a couple of things that it's better to do before even starting the whole process of code review. So the first one is to write some technical business overview, so you know how your business works in general, all the system, all the units, how they work together, what's the communication, contracts, this kind of stuff. And then after this, you can map this with the project, with the repos, with the teams. You know whom to talk, who knows the knowledge in this area and other areas. Of course, there is sometimes approach when everybody should know everything, but I believe sometimes it's not really happening in real life. So and after this, it's really important to define a code style and the formatting beforehand, so you will not have some tabs with the spaces discussions. And also important to set up some Git hooks and continuous integration. I will focus on this one a bit later. Why Git hooks? Because with this one, you can prevent developers of seeing their stuff failed on a CI. So first of all, it's kind of getting it faster, fail fast, fix faster. And the second is that other developers will not see that you have a typo, you forgot update something. So it's very nice to have a Git hooks there. And what you can put in a Git hooks on the pre-commit, if you're not squashing your commits, you can provide some. First of all, you can apply some hooks only for changed stuff. There's some tools for this. For JavaScript world, it's something like lint staged. Also, you can use Prettier with the auto-fixing your formatting. Prettier is an awesome tool for format your code. It's available for, I guess, most of the popular languages, and it's like almost zero configuration. You can only configure there something tab, spaces, and semicolons. Also, you can put there some auto-fixers for JavaScript world, CSLint or TSLint with the -- fix. And some other tools like fixing your checking your language, like for grammar, for wording you use, so some red words. But this is important if you care about the history of your commits, so you'll not have like a fixing typo and fixing something else. But if you squash, it's not that important, and you can put it on the pre-push apart from this. So on the pre-push hook, usually we have like a full link, so you just check all the stuff, how you write your code, then you run some unit tests, of course, and then you run the integration tests because usually they're the slowest. Yeah, so and as a bonus setup, you can have before a code review some acceptance builds. So if you're working on a website, it's basically you create an instance, web instance, and you have a link to share with the branch with your related to your changes. If you're working on a software, it's probably some build. You just build it and you ship it like a file, or how you distribute it. Yeah, so then we go to the create pull request process. The first important thing here is to define your auditory, so who you talk to, their knowledge. It's sometimes in some teams you have business people reviewing pull requests, especially if you have acceptance links. It's very useful. By the business people, it could be just a stakeholder, or also could be product designers that review how it was implemented, especially if you work with the front end. If you work more in a system, let's say in the backend part, it could be your teammates, or even also project manager, but you can teach them to use Postman or something like this, or if you use GraphQL, it's also a very nice tool to show the data because it's quite obvious. In my opinion. And then with your pull request, very important to provide a good description. And with a good description, I mean, first of all, they provide a small recap of the task, what you were working on. Sometimes in a task tracker, you have a description of a task, and then you have like a 25 comments about how it should be done. And somewhere below in the collapsed comments, you completely change your mind and you forgot to update description. So it's really nice to put like a short description, what was the actual intention. The second one is provide some how it was done, or technical overview. It should explain in a way that the reason behind each change in each file, so people will not be able to ask like why did you change this. They will read it from here, of course, if they will read it. And the third one is how to actually test this pull request. If you work with some backend, it's a Postman. You can share, some collection for testing. If you work with the web, just provide steps. If you need some preparational work, provide some scripts that will do automation for this. So people will be able to test it. And it's also important for yourself because you will have the clear path to follow if you want to check, is it still working, for example, after rebase, or if you haven't merged it for a while, like for a month or so, and then you come back to it. So very nice to have it there. Yeah, and now we're going to reviewing part. And the first part here is the reviewing automation. So what you can do here is on the CI level, you can run all the commands which you have on the Git hooks, and it should provide kind of a clear way of rerun this locally to know, is it maybe infrastructure or environment problem with the CI, or it's actual problem with the code. And as a bonus, you can provide some system like a Danger.js. And you may ask, what is Danger.js? It's a tool that integrates in your continuous integration process and provides an API for you to write some scripts for do additional checks. So in a way, it's playing a role of a bad code in your pull request. You can, for example, check if there is changes in SRC folder. You need to check, is there changes in a test folder? If there is no, you can kind of post a warning like, hey, you updated here files, but you haven't updated test. And this is how it looks actually like most integrations for GitHub, for example, or any code repository system you have. Yeah, so and then after you finish all the reviewing part with automation, all these typos and all the formatting stuff, you remove this one from the human reviewing. And here, the main point here is to review what is actually important for your for the code base. I believe there's kind of three main points that should be considered. The first one, you should check how it was solved on a high level, and the reading this technical overview really helps to understand it. Then you can check for trade-offs to see some performance degradation or scalability issues and this kind of stuff. Apart from like if you see some obvious bugs on or so on. And also you should check the understandability of this code because code is for humans. We read it and we read it much more than we write it. So it's very important that everybody will understand what's actually happening here. Not only from readability, but yeah, just what's a layer behind it. To start, like code review, very nice with some high-level approach, and then you go into details. Maybe you change some small specific stuff. Yeah, and if you see that you actually want to comment something, there's kind of a few things to consider. First of all, let's define our goals for what we wanted to achieve. The first one, we want to avoid some rising some conflicts or making this, hostile environment with the code reviews. Then we want to encourage some collaboration and knowledge exchange, of course. So again, define your auditor, define the who you talk to, define this person knowledge in certain areas or in general, like maybe it's junior developer, maybe it's a middle developer, maybe it's more functional programming person, maybe it's more object oriented and some language background. Really nice to consider. Then also consider some personal differences. Some people are really vulnerable for negative feedback. They're really getting offended, and some others just don't care. They're like, oh, yeah, it's shit. Okay, I will fix it. And remember when to go offline. So it's important not to start, like a long discussion. And if you don't understand something, you can ask not only on offline but also in the channels, in Slack, in the chats, maybe video chat. If you don't understand how it works, ask, and this kind of stuff. So, and there's also some bad habits that we have for commenting. Yeah, I was talking to myself here, preparing like last minute slides. So first is a negative emoji. If you provide like a shit or puke emoji, which is kind of not really informative, but some people do it. It's not really good. The second is sarcasm. Yeah, let's make it even worse. Did you ever test it and this kind of stuff? Not professional. Some opinions is a fact. I was struggling to provide some example here because I was thinking, but it's right, so this is like really controversial, but I will explain with this later. Don't start any holy wars. Try to fix all the stuff beforehand, especially with the code formatting, code style. Sometimes what helps is have manifesto if you cannot automate things. For example, in JavaScript, you can automate things like use async await instead of like promises and futures and this kind of stuff. But in some other languages and some other cases, it's not possible to automate and to enforce it. So just define the manifesto how you actually write your code and what is the better considered as a good approach, best practices, and this kind of stuff. And also out of scope stuff. So if it's not related to the changes or to the story, it's better not to ask about it. And it's not about the diff. For example, if you don't see it in the diff and somebody changed the function check, validate and send request and removed part of validation and didn't change the name of the function, it's of course not out of scope. You need to change it and you can ask about it, but it's maybe not in a diff. And if you know these bad practices, we can now want to learn how to actually put some words, how to make it better. There is some quick wins on the wording. So instead of asking why, you can use what, because why usually considered as an attack. So people will try to try to defend themselves. So it's really nice asking instead why you put it, why you provided here, I don't know, some state. You can ask something like, what's the advantage of having state here? You got it from it. And instead of using you can use we. Then it makes more collaborative way, teamwork, and this kind of stuff. And make sharing the responsibilities of the code base. And also for critic, you can use a trick called sandwich of critic. So first of all, you provide some good feedback, then you provide the actual your negative comments about it, and then you provide some good feedback as well. Yeah, some kind of tricks. Yeah, another side kind of note that a factual negative feedback is okay. If you see that somebody missed the test or missed some, I don't know, like introduced the bug, of course you can just provide, say like here you introduced the bug, here probably missed the test. So yeah, it's fine. And yeah, another important thing is if you add civility in a context to your message, it will make it more clear and more understandable. But yeah, we will talk a bit later. Maybe some cultural difference could be like, yeah, I will just provide as clear as possible without any additional wording. But it's not going to work because we cannot just like we don't have a protocol for data transferring from our head to head of another person. So it's better to kind of provide with some, additional words and a message. Yeah. Then we go into the part of actual receiving the feedback. So we're switching the roles now, and the most important here advice is interpret it as generously as possible. So if somebody provided you kind of feedback with a shit emoji or some sarcasm, yeah, just don't think that this person did it like he's mean or he's just evil person to you or it's a personal attack to you. Try to be more like okay, maybe this person has a bad morning or something like this, so it's better to ask more about details. So for a shit emoji you can ask like, hey dude, what do you mean here? Maybe you can provide more details. Try to be also polite and don't make the conflict of this. And another important thing is reply all the comments. So if people provided you feedback, it's very important to give them feedback back, so they will kind of feel that they took something valuable. Yeah, reply all the comments. And additionally, there's few things to consider: the cultural differences. So people, yeah, of course, it's quite controversial topic, and could be related to stereotypes. But from my experience, it sometimes really shows and make you more understand what's actually happening. Some people from some countries, they are more straightforward. They are really direct. They don't put any kind of additional, this fluffiness and politeness, And some other people are just, like they cannot say you it's a wrong code. They can say, it's a good but not brilliant or something like this. You get the point. Yeah. Huh? Yeah. So, but it's not even a sandwich. It's just like a piece of bread. And again, if somebody provides you, like a controversial comment and some holy war starting point, don't feed the troll. Yeah. And very important part here, I was saying that interpret generously. Don't think that person did something like evil to you. But also, if it's happening constantly, don't tolerate this bad behavior. If you're a manager, talk to this person or talk to this person manager to kind of change it. And if it still continues, you need to consider like switching these people for another team, maybe even fire, because this kind of behavior is unhealthy. It makes other people do the same, which make the whole environment less and less good and make it more hostile. Yeah, so I guess I'm a bit ahead of time, but as a short recap, what you can take off from this topic, what you can do tomorrow, maybe next week. Do all the automation, find the tools that can avoid human reviews kind of on this small and really not important stuff which could be automated. Talk to your team about bad practices and good practices. Try to raise this awareness of what's not really good, and especially talk to people that practice this bad behavior. Maybe they're great programmers, but still we work together, and it's very important to have more collaborative environment than a competitive, than aggressive and hostile. Yeah, and also make it part of your onboarding process. So for every newcomers, there will be kind of a short overview of how do you do code review and the pull request processes, and also make it really close to your life, because it won't work if you have a lot of good statements on the paper and they're not really working in real life. Yeah, so this section for questions, and if you want to ask me something later, you can follow me on Twitter and ask there. Yeah.